One of our friars, Brother Phil Kelly, may he rest in peace, was a man who was gifted in many ways of calling forth issues of the church's social teachings. And we lived in the same friary for a couple of years, and he asked me to come with him one day to a gathering downtown. This was in the city of Syracuse, New York. It was a gathering of people of a group called Mothers Against Gun Violence. I'd never been to one of those, attend one of those, but it was an eye-opening experience that these people were gathering there, and as you can imagine, all had been affected by violence and were promoting a different way forward, and yet one of the mothers got up to speak, and she just kind of painted the picture of what was discovered as they were doing the investigation of her son's death by gun violence. And what she said is, you'll be amazed at how intricate was the preparation for this act. That this wasn't just a random drive-by or whatever, but that there was planning that went into it in a way that showed this incredible evil. And she was just pointing that out to us, and she didn't have a gun in her hand. She was recognizing the need for a different response, even though I could imagine the anger, and I was thinking about that as the hatred of Joseph's brothers filled their hearts, and yet there was somehow a different way that they ultimately ended up deciding on handling the situation that was welling up within them. But I share that story to you just as a reminder of the importance of our Savior, Jesus, coming to us, and the fact that somehow, even in our own circumstances and situations, that we've arrived here, even though maybe we weren't quite involved in some of the things I was just describing, but perhaps we've stood as a stumbling block or begun to be halted by something in our human behavior that would have or could have had us go down the wrong path. And we hear Jesus willing to ask and allow people to be mystified. It seems to me that there might have been some other ways to gain more followers than to tell a story like this. But Jesus wasn't necessarily interested in numbers as much as the authenticity of the people that he was calling to conversion. Even the chief priests and the elders of the people were getting an opportunity to change. He was offering on that, and that's something that I'd like to suggest he's offering to each of us, because they were on the wrong track. The farming methods of the time were just like this, but it would have been crazy for those who are working in the vineyard to think that somehow that they could take over. that just wasn't, that was insanity. And so what I think Jesus is kind of saying here is to just be mindful, not just of the bad people in the past, but to look at our own hearts, to see that, wow, there are some moments there in the past perhaps that we could have ended up going down the wrong path and harming some people, whether it be with our actions or our thoughts or words. So we've arrived here and had the opportunity today to really open our hearts to Jesus and ask him to help us, because oftentimes we might have the desire to return in kind the evil that's been affected or inflicted upon me or us. But he's calling us in this different way to watch him in his method so that we might grow, and that it could start with the very fact of the first reading there as Joseph was given a great gift by his father. And rather than hatred, I wonder if his brothers and those around him could have celebrated the gift in Joseph's life rather than been angry at it. And yet that seems to be sometimes our first mode, is if someone's blessed, that means I'm not. But that's not true, really. We're blessed to be able to see that blessing and to say thank you to God, even though that blessing might not be mine and I'd long for it. But we have the opportunity for a change of heart, to see that ultimately it is in giving that ultimately the blessings will come to us too. That we follow the path of Jesus. And that's what he's inviting us today to, not to just point fingers at people who did wrong things, although we obviously need to know that and acknowledge it, but to see, okay, Lord, how are you inviting me now to a conversion of heart and to recognize that you've been working there to help me, to protect me, and to protect others sometimes from me. And that's a grace that sometimes it's not easy to take. But let us ask him for that gift this day as we continue our Lenten journey, that we might always be ultimately doing things that are pleasing in his eyes, distancing ourselves from anything that would be worthless, a waste of God's time, or harmful to us or others. Help us to do things, ultimately, Jesus, that are meaningful in your eyes. Help us, Jesus, to do things that are ultimately meaningful in your eyes.